She's a former mayor. They're a former evangelical pastor with dissociative identity disorder. These two like to talk about the topics you're not supposed to talk about. They might cause you to perspire just a bit, but they'll definitely make you inspired. Let's talk religion and politics, and what spirituality and emotional well-being look like in a post-evangelical world. This is Paul and Ashley on Evangelicalish.
Don't you just love how, like, the Brits, they eat pastor and they go to church to listen to a pasta?
Pasta.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that.
That is the Nicky Gumbel joke for those of you who were keeping score at home.
Oh my God.
If you
Nicky
ever
Gumbel.
did anything with alpha, this is reaching deep into the charismatic evangelical circles. Y'all listening know, you know what I'm talking about. Nicky Gumbel would always tell the pasta and the pastor joke in the alpha videos we would watch when we were attending a vineyard church. So
I have to admit, there are a lot of things I've deconstructed, and like they sort of trigger me, like I can't go back to. But Nicky Gumbel's still pretty cool. I could probably still do Nicky Gumbel.
I have to tell you,
I love that guy.
I feel the same. I definitely feel the same. And if you're listening to this and you're like, who are these people? And like, who is Nicky Gumbel? Like, so what was it about Nicky Gumbel? I think he was just very authentic, don't you think?
And British. I think British always like softens everything up somehow a little bit. Yeah.
And there was something just open and sort of humble about the way he engaged people and talking about, his version of Christianity. And
there was an evangelical training program called Alpha, and which is, in this context, it's in America today, that's a terrible word, but it was more about kind of Alpha, the beginning of learning about Jesus. And it was a sweet program because he was a really gentle, kind teacher, and British with bad British teeth, and was very, very funny. So loved it.
And everyone, welcome to Evangelicalish. It is Wednesday, January 22nd.
And a big week for us. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
Well, and I mean, I would like big, explode that word. Like, there's just, man, it's been 2 days of the Trump administration.
Has it only been 2 days?
It's only been 2 days. I have the privilege of not like following every single headline. And yet there's just something in my, like I just feel out of sorts. It's like it's a full moon and it's just like that. So I don't know. I'm putting 2 and 2 together on that one.
It's, oh my God. Well, it's 3 days. Monday.
Well, inaugurated.
Tuesday,
First full
Wednesday.
day yesterday, second full day today.
Oh, well, he did like a shitload of executive orders on Monday. So that was, so it's just, it's long days, long years. We got 4 long years ahead. So we'll talk more about that later. We've got plenty of time to talk about, I was going to say that asshole. Sorry.
And
but it was a very big week for us in a lot of ways.
A big week because personally, well, we almost spilled the beans last week. Remember, right before we went on the show, you're like, let's talk about Sam and Jalen. And I'm like, no, like they're not, you can't say anything yet. But our son, our baby, our 21-year-old proposed to the love of his life on Saturday. Yeah. And she said yes. So
and she said yes.
We're getting married.
Well, when you say that's yeah. We're not losing a son. We're gaining a daughter.
Oh yeah. Anyway, so that was Saturday. That was, it was just so special. It was like really just like a graced moment where like all the details went perfectly well. She was totally sorry. It was just a beautiful, beautiful moment. And
she was hella surprised. Not that he was proposing. They already have been talking about that for some time, but that it happened at that moment. They had worked it out perfectly. And the really good thing about this, not the really good thing, but a really good thing is he has fantastic in-laws. He really does. That her parents are amazing. We love them. And of course,
Totally.
she has amazing in-laws. So yeah.
I mean, like, no, I actually been thinking the last couple, because I think there was so much focus on just like get to Saturday, there's a very crescendo moment. So I've had a little bit of like let down from that. And now I'm like, oh shit, like I have to step up my mother-in-law game. I have to, you say like, how do you really do that well? And like, um, it's not, I mean, it's not hard. She's wonderful and amazing. And also it's like it's all of a sudden it's like even deeper. Even though I knew this was a pair and they were going to be together, there's just something about it is now official, and like it's a whole new level of commitment.
Yeah.
And I don't want to screw it up. And I just have been thinking about I just feel some performance anxiety around this whole topic. So anyway, that's another show.
And not right away, because it's not a shotgun wedding, let me tell you. But we are going to have to start thinking about our like grandma and grandpa names at some point. So
I actually, so I have a lot of work friends who are further down the path than I am on this, and I've been paying attention. And everyone, well, some people sort of steer to a certain name, and other people let it happen organically. Like our son's fiance, Jalen, her mom has 2 grandbabies, and the oldest one, like the first one who could talk, her first name is Robin, and this adorable little girl just ended up saying like rah rah, and so now her grandma name is rah rah. Like it's the cutest thing ever. So I'm like, oh, I like when it just organically happens, but that could also go terribly wrong.
It could. But if you have a cute grandchild, they could call you
They can call you whatever. They can call you butt face.
Yeah, exactly. And you're going to be fine.
Yes, here I am.
And the big week for me is I started both school as a professor teaching 2 journalism classes at our local community college. One of those a dual enrollment with high school students. And I started school as a student in my master's program for marriage and family therapy. And I am so underwater right now and have no idea what I'm doing. I don't even know what to say. It's just crazy.
Whew, I've been on the, side of the pool thinking to myself, do I throw the life raft? Like it is a big deal to not have been in school for almost 40 years, like, right?
Well,
or like 30
I mean,
years.
I went through, pastoral training and Bible study and things like that. But yes, I haven't been in like actual school since 1988. That's when I graduated from undergrad. So,
so, I mean, it's like a big shock to your brain.
Yeah. Like reading and stuff. It's scary.
Like reading, you're like, I have to read like 500 pages and write 3 papers in a week. And I'm like,
oh my gosh, I've already had to write 3 papers in the APA format, whatever the hell that means. But anyway, that's what's going on in our world. And here we are on Evangelicalish, and somehow Donald Trump is president of the United States. I have no fucking idea how that happened, but yeah, there it is. So, but a great way to be distracted from that shit is either take a master's program or listen to really good podcast. And our guests tonight have a really good podcast. Yeah.
I was going to say, or you could do both. I mean, you could. Yeah. And by the way, now is a good time if you're going to go back to grad school in part to escape from the world around us. Why don't you get a degree in like therapy? Because you're going to need it. I need it. And if like just to cope with the outside world. So anyway, yes.
Stephanie Christine says you need to pack us a lunch and leave encouraging notes in it. That will help.
I really should do that. I should do that. But yes, also Stephanie was I think last week the person who said like, what, Laci and Lola are coming on? Oh my God, I love them. So we gotta jump in with the one and only, or I guess the 2 and only, Laci and Lola from Deadly Faith. And it's so cool to put names and faces and voices and to actually see you all here in person. Thanks for joining us.
Laci and Lola from the Deadly Faith podcast. And let me just say that Lola is a 27-year-old Alabama native. She got into the podcast world as a guest on the Messy Spirituality podcast. And after spending 20 years devoted to a Church of Christ cult, she chose to step away and explore a spiritual path that truly resonated with her. And in addition to her podcasting work, Lola is a practicing kitchen witch, hairstylist, and artist. Very nice. Welcome, Lola.
Thank you.
And Laci's a 34-year-old wife and mother of 3, a religious cult survivor. She began sharing her deconstruction journey online in 2020, connecting with a community of like-minded individuals. And in addition to her various endeavors, Laci is, now get this, here I'm bitching, listen to this. She's currently studying for a degree in cardiovascular technology. So yeah, way to one-up me there, Laci Bean.
Mine's a 2-year degree, not a master's. So I'm definitely not one-upping you.
Nicely done. Well, welcome to the show, guys.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
How in the world did you start a Deadly Faith podcast, a true crime podcast about crime happening in religious circles?
So when I first started like on social media in 2020, I've always loved YouTube, and I've always loved the idea of just like doing some kind of YouTube channel. So at first it started as a YouTube channel where it was just me. Oh my gosh, Liz said she's a big fan of Lola and I. Thank you, Liz. It started as a YouTube channel and it was just me. And if anyone has ever edited videos, then you know how much work it is to do that and be like a one-person show. And so it kind of went through like ebbs and flows with us moving and all of that. And then I started it back up. And after a couple weeks, I had actually interviewed on the Messy Spirituality podcast. And that's when I met Lola. And I was like, we should do this as a podcast together.
Listen, she like cold called me about it too.
I did.
She just messaged me.
Hey,
like,
girl.
We had met that one time for the interview. And then after that, we stalked each other. We both found that out later.
Yeah.
And then she was like, hey, so how are you? But also, do you want to start a true crime?
I didn't even say, how are you? I literally just cold messaged her with, hey, do you want to start a religious true crime podcast with me? And she was like, hell yeah. So that's kind of how it went. How the like combining the religious aspect with true crime. I was literally driving down the road one day, and because I was in deconstruction and I was allowing myself with my deconstruction to like enjoy true crime, because I was kind of shamed for like liking that kind of stuff. Like, oh, that's evil kind of thing. I kind of just combined the two, and I was like, religious true crimes are fascinating. Also, I had just like admitted I came out of a cult. So there was that kind of fascination. So yeah, it just kind of happened. And Lola and I literally just head first jumped off into this journey of starting this podcast together.
Let me show these are really, it's a really short clip. Just give everybody a taste of what you do if they haven't experienced the podcast before. I probably should have got a bigger clip, but this is just a taste of what Laci and Lola do on the Deadly Faith podcast.
You know, everything's bigger in Texas, so I guess murder and crime's bigger in Texas, you know?
That's a good thing. Why did I ask that?
Oh my gosh. Okay. We're going to take another left turn right back into the case. So in a small country town of Wiley, Texas, just north of Dallas, lived Alan and Betty Gore. On the night of June 13th, 1980, Alan Gore called up his neighbor, Richard Parker, around 9 p.m. Alan was currently in Minnesota on a business trip and hadn't been able to get a hold of his wife, Betty, and it had been hours. You know, everything's bigger in Texas, so I guess murder and crime.
So that's kind of how it goes. And so even though it's true crime, it seems like you guys have fun talking about these grisly murders.
Yeah, we do. Our toxic trait, if you want to call it that, is that we laugh in uncomfortable situations. And so like dark humor is our coping mechanism. And so we will crack jokes. And like you said, when Lola was like, our dicks bigger in Texas. Lola says some of the most off the wall shit.
Thoughts. I let them win sometimes.
She does, especially on the podcast. And so it just kind of, we bring some brevity to pretty serious cases. There are a few cases that we've covered where like from beginning to end it's serious and there's like no room for any kind of like jokes. One of them was like we covered 9/11, and that one was really serious. And then I just covered, which it's not out, it won't be out for another like couple weeks, maybe a month or two. I covered the Sandy Hook shooting. That was another one that was complete serious.
Sometimes there's no smiles and no laughs throughout it. So the ones where there is a little bit of room, we like to take advantage if we can.
Well, when you started down, so Laci, you're driving down the road and you're like, I know, peanut butter and chocolate go together. Like, let's do true crime and murder or religion. Boom. I mean, were you worried at all that you were going to run out of content, or you're like, oh my God, So talk a little bit about how you frame up religion and murders coming together. Like how do you do that?
Some of our cases are like staunchly religion. We're covering cults, and so there from beginning to end it's religious. And then sometimes like we have covered some of the most infamous serial killers. Ted Bundy, we covered him, which it's not out yet. That one will come out in a couple months. We've covered BTK, Dahmer. You said Donner?
I said Donner. Yeah. Like it's a fucking reindeer. Anyway.
Yeah.
So you could cover what the people that ate each other in Donner Pass or something.
Yeah. Well, those are more, there's like some religious affiliation somewhere along the line, whether they grew up religious or some of them tried to find religion to like like kind of try to tamper down their evil thoughts and like maybe this will answer my question or like help me become a better person.
Ted Bundy did a bunch of interviews with James Dobson, right?
Did he?
Yeah.
So it opens up the door for us to have the conversation of, did religion play a part in them committing this crime or in their psyche? Or, an easy one that's already out that you guys can listen to the whole episode is we cover Jeffrey Dahmer, and he grew up religious. Everyone wants to make this big whole thing of like, he came to know Jesus after he was caught. I'm like, he grew up religious. After his first murder, he went back and like dove into it again, trying to like get that to be the answer to solve all of his like evil thoughts and desires. So we kind of talk about like, was his religious beliefs and religious upbringing and religious surroundings, did that play a part in him not wanting to come out as gay? Mm-hmm. If he would have been able to come out and if he would have been able to explore sexuality in a healthy way, whether he did like the, more BDSM style, if he was able to explore that, would that have altered his path? Would it have not? So we just kind of are able to have those conversations. We talk about like the religious beliefs that are harmful that may have played a part in the crime. And then we give our points of view from two people who have deconstructed fundamentalist religious groups.
And to add on to that too, we also talk about how they will utilize religion and religious principles to encourage whatever they're doing and to justify their actions and that kind of thing. So it's multifaceted.
Yeah.
How about a little teaser on the Sandy Hook show? Like, what's the religious connection there? If you can say a little bit about
that. Alex Jones. Alex Jones was my caveat into religion because of his trials. He constantly was demonizing the jury, the judge, calling them Jezebels and demons and that they're controlled by Satan. And he knew that using that kind of language with his fan base, they would eat it up because they were, mostly evangelical Christians. And so they're like, oh yeah, they're just trying to come after you. So that was my avenue into being able to cover and I just really wanted to cover the case because it was just shocking to me that 25%, it was a statistic I found out, was that 25% of Americans believe that Sandy Hook was a hoax.
Oh my God.
Blew my mind. I was like, are you kidding me? What world do we live in?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we live in a world where every time there's a school shooting, it's like, don't politicize gun control now after this. And LA is being wiped out by fire. And it's like, California is going to have to change before we give them any money.
Yeah.
And it just makes me say F you to people.
Yeah. It's like, when is a good time? Paul, you said this before, and it stuck with me, and it always will, was, if right now is not a good time to bring up this conversation and have this conversation, when is a good time? Because you don't want to listen, whether it's we talk about it right now after a shooting, or if we talk about it 6 months from now.
Sadly, we don't have a lot of time in between mass shootings.
Yeah.
A lot of time. But so I always find it interesting. Christians talk a lot about trans people being predators, teachers in school being predators, but the facts are most child molesters are white Christian men, that they are the majority molesters in the country. So are you, I don't know if you just were throwing out a theory there, or if you have found that to be true, that, and it is my theory, that this sexual repression of Christianity does lead to deviant behavior and very antisocial behavior. Do you guys agree that that's a big part of the problem as you're looking at these crimes?
I mean, we learn shame. Shame is not something that you're born with. So in high control religions, shame is a tool used to repress a lot of things, and that can stunt emotional development. So that can lead to, disgusting behavior, disturbing behavior.
Yeah.
So,
and we've demonized sexuality in all its forms from the time you are old enough to even start hearing about it in the church, which is still way too young, in my opinion, the way that they talk about it. It's demonized from the very get-go. And so you have all of these natural, normal, healthy urges that are coming up, but you're having to repress them over and over and over and over again. And you are not given the tools to process through it, to explore it, to really understand what it's like. And that's why I believe so many of the crimes that we see that happen within the four walls of our churches are sexual crimes, usually a white, and I'm air quoting straight because they're probably in the closet most of the time.
Repressed,
white, straight,
maybe is the better word. Yeah.
Cis men. And they put themselves in these positions of power, and then they cross the line over and over again. And it's some sexual sin because we have demonized it so much from our childhood up that they don't know how to have a healthy sexual relationship without it being in secret, because no matter what you do, you're made to feel like it's bad, whether that's looking at porn for, personal pleasure. You're made to feel like that's bad. Thoughts, like even, if you think the sin of, sexual impurity with somebody
if
else,
you have a dirty dream.
You have a wet dream. Goodness gracious, you're a sinner. So we've demonized it so much that it's such a natural urge that when we repress it so much, I think it just ends up coming out in such awful ways within our religious organizations, unfortunately. And that's the majority of our crimes.
And then I remember one show you had about, I think, a young man in Texas who was harming women, and everybody was covering for him. I think maybe that's a common thread in religion too. Like, oh, he's a nice guy, that he couldn't be doing that.
Yeah, it was called The Demon Next Door. It was a book. Yeah. My sister actually told me about that case, and it was wild. He came out and he had sexually assaulted. I think he actually raped her. I'm not 100%. I can't remember. It's been so long since I covered it. But then he slit her throat. We're going to get a little graphic. It's a trigger warning. Sorry, guys. Should have given that a little bit before that. But he slit her throat. She identified him. He confessed to the crime, and the pastor of the church was still fighting for him, and ended up, they did this whole thing, got him off to where he only spent a few years in jail. Lo and behold, he gets out. A handful of years later, he does it again and ends up murdering multiple more women. And they had actually, the pastor had said to the prosecutor, was demonizing the victim and calling her a whore and a slut and things like that. The pastor was saying that.
Baby. Oh my God.
I think this was back in like the 70s, 80s.
Yeah. So here at Evangelicalish, we talk about, it's really bad when religion and politics get intertwined. And here you're like, it's really bad when religion and sexuality and murders get combined. It's like kind of like we keep going up the road here just a bit. Sort of like religion's just kind of really bad. Like when this, when we get stuck here. So I'm curious, like maybe talk us through a little bit of your deconstruction journeys, your backgrounds, and how you got to the point where you're like, I'm just gonna like go headlong into this deconstruction journey.
Lola, you go first. Explain to everyone your kitchen witchery.
Yeah, the kitchen witch. I'm very intrigued by the kitchen witch thing.
I can't decide if it's like a certain kind of blender that everyone knows about that I've never heard of, or you're just like, chef, or like
buy the kitchen witch, and you get this set of knives along with it. Yeah,
listen, that's a better response than Jason Elam, because he said, conversely, bathroom witch, is that a thing? Living room witch, like. Is it? Do you get to choose which room in the house?
What can we get them to do for us? Because I'm all about just like I don't want to do the chores. So I'm anyway. What's a kitchen witch?
Okay. Well, should I say something about my deconstruction?
Yeah, go through your deconstruction and then end with your kitchen witchery.
Okay, so in 2019, I divorced my abusive husband, and that was based on marital rape that had occurred within our relationship. So I was kind of exiled from the church because of why I got divorced, because in the Church of Christ, marital rape does not exist. So it's just part of the contract. You will always have sex no matter what. You will obey the man at all costs. So, but I didn't think that was fair. And so when I left him, I lost all of my community in that church. I had grown up in that community for roughly 21 years. And I also lost a good portion of my blood family through the church as well. So fuck the Church of Christ. Someone just commented, Stephanie and Christine commented, fuck the Church of Christ. I agree. To a certain extent, I agree with that. So, where was I at? Sorry.
You lost
much of your blood family because I
lost a lot of my family, and I kept asking questions after that because a lot of other things just didn't seem fair to me for a woman's role in marriage, in the house. Just everything that I had held true for so long was now crumbling, and it was like a snowball of questions happening. And it also came down to, is hell real? And if it's not real, what's the point of all this? Because without hell, everything else falls apart with my old belief system. So I ended up leaving church officially. I had tried like a couple of house churches and some like non-denominational, like real hippie kind of churches, but I just decided it wasn't for me, left that path. And then I ran into the Messy Spirituality podcast with Jason Elam, and I binged all of it. I loved it. I was so amazed at the amount of people that could thrive outside of church doors. Especially the women. The women's testimonies on there really made a difference for me and how I could find my power. So I then entered therapy, and that really helped me too, to take back my power. Highly suggest therapy. And after that, I was asked to be a guest on Messy Spirituality, and I was deconstructing all of those toxic beliefs. And I wanted to call myself like a reformed Christian for a long time, but it just didn't really fit with me after all. I have nothing against Jesus. I think Jesus is a pal, cool dude. I believe that we're friends, but I just don't believe in worshiping him. And I decided to go on a more earthbound path. And for me, that looked like witchery, kitchen witchery specifically. And I'll just tell you a little bit about kitchen witchery. So it's magic within the home and hearth. So for me, that means like being very intentional with the things that I do in my home, the things that I make specifically to eat. Food is a very healing thing for me. I am in remission from an eating disorder, anorexia nervosa. So kitchen witchery has helped me to understand the magic in food and just being very intentional with like when I make food for other people and for myself. Yeah. And also it has to do with spell jars too. You can make spell jars with spices. Kitchen witchery looks different. Witchery looks different for every person. The craft is very personalized. There's no one size fits all.
So you're not worshiping Satan and not.
I'm not. No. Actually, don't believe in Satan, so I cannot worship that person. But I'm sure they're fine. I'm sure they're a cool dude, you know?
Yeah.
Just like Jesus. Cool dude. Just don't really want to like throw my face down on the ground in front of them.
Mhm.
I'd rather do that for myself.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Amen.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Some of her like kitchen witchery. There's been times when I have like told her a situation of like something that's going on about somebody I know. And then she'll send me a picture of like she lit a candle for them. Or one time she like wrote their name on a leaf and then like, did you burn it or something?
Yeah.
Or
So
and that stuff.
spell candles and simmer pots and things like that are a big part of the craft. So yeah, I don't remember what I was doing in those scenarios. But
it was one of my friends was pregnant and we were afraid she was going to lose the baby.
Yes.
So it was that situation. But to me, it always has meant so much more when Lola does things like that instead of somebody being like,
I'm praying for
you. Because I'm like, you are not just like, I'm stopping and like saying a few words in my head. You're going out of your way to gather items to make this thing to like, so to me, it's like the thought and the effort that you go forward in doing this. Like it's the care that you put in all of it. And that just like, I'm like, there's so much I do and don't believe in that I'm just like, I don't know, but it's cool and I like it and it means a lot to me.
It's the magic in the mundane.
Yeah, yes.
It's making everything very intentional, whether that's sweeping the floor or adding cinnamon to a loaf of bread. Like
putting cinnamon on your door front, your door.
Oh yeah, I do that every
New
month.
Year's Day. Oh, I thought it was just New Year's Day.
Well, on New Year's Day, it's a really big deal. But on the first of the month, every month, I will blow cinnamon dust into my front door, and that's to bring blessings into my house, abundance into my house and into my life. So that's a big thing that a lot of witches across the board will do at the first of every month.
Every time I hear a Christian say, I'll pray for you, what it means is I'm going to say an incantation to get a mystical spirit to manipulate you to believe the way I believe.
Yes.
That's what I hear.
If even that, I feel like most people that have told me I'm going to pray for you, I don't feel like they prayed for me. I feel like they just said it just to like sound like a good person, like they were doing something bigger than themselves. But I don't really believe that God ever heard anything from them.
No, to me it feels very like, bless your heart.
Passive.
That's the vibe.
It's like, and you know what it is? It's like centering yourself in somebody, something that they're sharing. And it's like, look at me that I'm doing this for you. It's instantly centering yourself. I'm just sitting here obsessed with the thought of having dinner with you, Lola, at your house. And I'm thinking
I'd love
about
to have you.
what would we eat? That would be like, someday.
Have a feast.
That would be fun. That would be fun.
Speaking of food at Lola's house, when I stayed with her for a few days, I'm not kidding. She turned me on to this, and it was just one of those like happy little accidents. Her grandma sent us home with okra from her garden. She was like, "Here, take all of this."
Okra.
So we were like, "We're gonna fry it," and Lola had never fried okra before. And like they do the cornmeal and the flour. She had no cornmeal, so she's like, "What do I got?" She grabs a box of turkey stuffing, and then takes all the turkey stuffing and just like breaks it up and then uses the turkey stuffing as coating for the okra. It was the most delicious fried okra. I came home and actually made normal fried okra, and I was like, this is bullshit. Like, this does not taste good. And so now I feel like fried okra with like stuffing.
And you know what? You know
my
what's in that
turkey
stuffing mix
okra.
is rosemary, which is good for remembrance and wisdom, and thyme, which is good for longevity, and
Look
just
at her. Look at her.
a pepper for grounding, like plethora of great
Wow.
things in there. So
I've tried to make fried okra before, and I cannot get the cornmeal to stick to the
difficult.
okra. So
Yeah,
it's really
difficult.
tough.
Try
All
the
right,
turkey
Laci,
stuffing.
tell us your yeah, I'll try that. Tell us your backstory.
Yes.
Okay, so I started deconstructing in 2020. My husband and I had moved from Oregon to South Idaho at the time, and so we were living in South Idaho by ourselves. We didn't have like any of his family around, and I had found out that Trump, when he was rerunning for, God, I hate to say he's president again. That feels so fucking weird.
I know.
But when he was running in 2020, my brother called me, which my brother's gay. And he said that is important to the story. Okay. So he's like, are you voting for Trump again? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, why? And I was like, well, I just think he was a really good president and he did some really good things. I know we're all vomiting in our mouths right now. I get it. And he goes, okay, but what good things did he do? And then it was just silent because I could not think of anything good he'd done because I just voted Republican because I was told that's what you're supposed to do. And then he goes, you do know that he has sexual assault allegations against him and some are of a minor. And I was like, excuse me, what? And he said, I'll send you some court documents tonight. And I was like, yeah, because he also knew he was like probably I think he was the first person I confided in about my childhood sexual abuse. And so he knew that. And so I think he partially is probably a little manipulative and was like, I know how to get through to her on this topic. So that night he sent me some court documents and I read them and I cried because as a survivor, my whole world just kind of exploded in that moment of like all of these, prominent evangelical people who are like, what's the word I'm looking for? Where they can like tell the future. They're making prophecies, prophetic. Yes. They're out here saying like Trump is God's man. But here on the other hand, I'm reading these court documents and these allegations. His guilt was never a question in my mind because our justice system is always very unfair when it comes to sexual assault victims. So I believed that this was true. You can argue whether you believe that or not. I believed it was true. Still believe it's true to this day. So I could not balance the two of everyone saying this is God's man while also believing all of these sexual assault allegations. The two were not coming together. And so then after that, I just started really digging into politics and my whole world started completely crumbling around me. And then I opened TikTok one day and there was this pastor telling me that it was okay to vote for Democrats and that God was not mad at me. And yes, that was Paul. And I was like, oh my God. I just like, it was like I had like this fatherly hug, just like reach through the phone and just like, it's okay. It's all right. And I bawled probably for 2 days straight. Then I found his podcast and I consumed that like crazy. That was when you had the what was it called?
A nonpartisan evangelical.
Yes, that
Oh
that
my
podcast.
gosh.
A long time ago. So I was reading or listening to that. Then I found out about Paul's coaching cohort and signed up for that. Did that for I don't know how long it was, like 3 months or something like that. I can't remember how long we did it for. And it was completely life-changing. I started with like this meek little girl and then ended with purple hair and more tattoos. And it's just completely like coming out of my shell. I was sharing on social media. I remember I shared my first video about it was like the Satan shoes for Lil Nas X, and I made a video saying how mad I was at all Christians because they're on an uproar about stupid Satan shoes when there's so much more we need to talk about. And I sent it to Paul and I was like, I just posted my first video. He was so excited. And then after that, I just started finding a community of people who were also deconstructing. And so kind of like Lola in the sense of I held on to like, I'm still a Christian for a really, really long time until that just did not feel right to me anymore. So right now I say I'm an agnostic atheist is kind of where I'm at. I align a lot with, if you know, Promise. Her handle's Eve Was Framed. I align a
Eve
lot
Was
with
Framed,
her.
yeah.
Yeah. She's deconstructed a little bit prior to me. And then our paths have been kind of similar. And that's in ways, not altogether, but that's kind of where I'm at. But I still love Jesus. He's a cool freaking dude, man. And I probably still have more Christian friends on Facebook and social media, but it is kind of something that Ashley said earlier. It's like when religion meets this, when religion meets that, it's bad. There was a common denominator. It's when religion has control. That's when it gets bad. So when it tries to control politics, when it tries to control our bodies and this and that, that's when it gets bad. And I've noticed that most of my Christian friends that I have on social media, they're not controlling. They're like, live and let live, people. Let's just love each other on this world.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's where my deconstruction has happened, how it happened.
You make me so proud.
That's the short version of it, though, because Laci has a book where she goes into that called Leaving the Sanctuary, and I'm going to plug that right now.
Lola's like,
shameless
plug for
because it's a great book. I already knew so much about Laci's story, just being besties, but like seeing it written down is a whole different thing.
Yeah. And Paul's in it.
That's awesome.
Yay.
You know, when I was a kid growing up, so my grandmother came to the evangelical Christian faith through a Billy Graham crusade. I grew up in the South in the 80s. And so Billy Graham was, talked about a lot. Anyway, there was always this sermon like at, I don't know, every now and then, whether it was at youth camp or somewhere, some preacher would be talking about like, we all know about Billy Graham. But what about the person that witnessed to Billy Graham and got him saved, or sold the person's shoes that then witnessed that? I feel like that's Paul. Like Paul's going to be the like, you hear of all these ones like, right. Cause they all saw Paul's video.
Right. Yes.
No,
seriously.
I feel like the best thing that I did in helping you, Laci, is telling you need to market your name. You've got a grade A killer name. I don't remember what your moniker was or whatever. I'm like, Laci Dean is like that's a gold-winning name. That's a brand name right there.
What it is.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna embarrass myself because super freaking cringe. I had a blog before I deconstructed.
Oh, I just recently found that. It was so cringy. It was so good. I made fun of her. It was great.
She did. So I had not, like, when I had met Paul and started doing the cohort and everything, I was not on social media. I had not, like, besides my own private stuff. And he was like, you have to go by Laci Bean. You have to go by Laci Bean. He's like, it is the best name. The name of my blog, it was The Deeply Rooted Mom. It was the most evangelical bullshit I've ever heard in my life.
Oh my gosh.
I still have a business card somewhere.
Also, her hair from back then was atrocious.
Oh,
thanks, Lola.
Don't do your hair like that.
No, it really was. It was. I had a glow up, honestly. I really did.
Deconstruction, I think, gave us both a glow up.
My husband did too, because he started deconstructing with me, but after me. But it was like I had deconstructed probably, oh my gosh, it was like a year and a half before my husband started to kind of come along in his own way, but by himself. And that was my biggest fear. Do you remember that, Paul? I had sat with you and I just bawled. I was like, I'm going to lose my marriage. And then Paul's crying and he's just like wants to reach to the camera and hug me because I'm like terrified I'm going to lose my husband through deconstruction. And it happens. Like it's unfortunately a possibility in many situations.
It's a real dividing line. That's for sure.
It is. When I did my trauma recovery coaching, like one of our disclaimers that we tell our clients before they sign up is you recognize and understand that by taking and doing trauma recovery coaching, aspects of your life could change. Relationships you have with people could change dramatically. And you literally have to sign a paper saying like, yes, I recognize that. Because it's life changing.
So, I mean, people are having to make choices of turning against family heritage and lineage and thus losing relationships and all those things. So it can be traumatic for sure.
And when you stop to think about it, like growing up in a like kind of like Christian nation, air quotes, like where sort of society and culture reinforces whatever this kind of Christianity thing, it's hard to detect. But when you start to have, when people start pulling apart on their faith or spirituality, there's so many times where it's you realize that is actually what your family is bound together through, not through just like direct and genuine connection to this other human being that is like in your life that you would do anything for. It's like, oh no, I would do anything for you as long as you profess the same point of view or the same religion that I do. And then you go, well, wait a second, wait, is that what this is? All my like closest relationships in life are all based on that. How sick is that?
That's honestly the straw that broke the camel's back for my husband, because he saw me deconstructing and he saw all these people, some very close to him, start changing the way they treated me and how our relationships were. And he realized very quickly, oh, wait, this whole unconditional love I've been taught actually does have conditions.
Yeah.
And when that kind of like, veil came up, he was like, fuck all of this. And that's when he started doing, his deconstruction and
well, in a human on human way, it's, I love you no matter what, unless you don't vote for this horrible man, or, and then from a supernatural way, a God who is the best father ever. I love you no matter what, unless you don't worship me the right way, and then I'll set you on fire for all of eternity. I mean, it's just such a ridiculous.
Leaving church was kind of like leaving an abuser, because the more time you have away from them, the clearer you see things, and the more you see that there was actually no unconditional love ever there.
Yeah.
So I have a show topic I want to suggest for you guys for Deadly Faith.
Oh.
I don't know if have you heard about that? I don't know. Do you know who Sean Bowles is? Do you guys, speaking of prophets, have you heard of Sean Bowles?
He sounds familiar. If I saw the face, maybe, because the name sounds familiar.
So he's a Bethel prophet, and we know him, and actually have loved him. But there is a big popular TikToker going around now who says she got her boyfriend got a prophetic word using her name. Jubilee is her name. And Sean Bowles, is he will go into big conferences and he'll say, if somebody named Ray here or something, and Ray that lives on such and such street, and Ray will jump up and then he said, like, so in this video, he's like, does the word Jubilee, God gave me Jubilee, does that mean anything to you? And Ray, oh, that's my girlfriend. And, we ate this other night at this great place. Does that mean anything? Oh, Jubilee works there. Oh, so all of this went, and eventually said, well, God said he's giving you Jubilee. And so she marries him because of this prophetic word. He's like 20 years older than her. And then he strangles her, like nearly kills her. She stays with him because everybody's telling her, well, God prophesied this, so you should, so she nearly dies. She finally leaves. And so now she's telling the story, because later she found out everything that Sean said was all available on Facebook. And she found out he had data scrubbed and got all of this information from social media and used it as a prophetic word. That's the story she's telling. I'm not saying I verified that that's true or anything, but she is telling the story. And now and I have also heard this about IHOP in Kansas City, that now it's coming out, and if Julie Roy's, I hear she's working on this. I hear Heaven Bent is working on this, and this is going to be coming out a lot in the near future, that a lot of these prophets are data scrubbing to get their information before they go.
Let's be honest, that's a tale as old as time. There's a book, when you go into one of our libraries at one of our campuses, they have this like little rolling cart that they have all their old books on, right? And they're like, just take them, it's free. And I saw it said something about faith healing, I think was the name of it. And I was like, what the hell? And so I pick up the book, and at first I was like, big eye roll. But then I realized the whole book was written, and it's older. It's like written in the 90s. It was written by a guy who investigated all these like faith healers, and it's him exposing them on like they do that thing, whole data scrubbing. It's forwarded by Carl Sagan. I was like, oh hell yeah. So I have it. It's literally like my bedside book by my bed. I'm like, I can't wait to consume.
She doesn't have a Bible. She has false prophet documents.
Yeah, forwarded by Carl Sagan, the guy all of our evangelical family is afraid of.
And nowadays with everything on social media, like it makes so much sense. I mean, it's hard to imagine. I'm thinking of the last time I sat in a service where people were giving prophetic words, like, you know, they were either so conceptual or like so kind of like, well, that's a wonderful, encouraging word that could apply in like, you know, in any situation, you know, or, you know, nowadays, you could totally glean everything off of social media.
Yeah.
I you know, I've seen things happen that I can't explain, that I can't say they could be data scrubbed, but to do that and tell people God is saying,
yep.
And you know, people are going to be influenced to make life decisions off of that. That's horrific.
I have to say, you know, that's one of the things that I appreciated about the sort of stream of charismatic world that we came out of is like whenever we would go to trainings and stuff like that, everyone always said, you never do these like life defining things, like you will have a baby on this day, or you should marry the stranger named Ben, person, or they would just say like, don't talk about what Mary, Barry, or Carrie. Or
it was
like that,
mates,
you know?
mates, dates, or babies. You were never supposed to talk about
mates,
those
dates, or
three
babies.
things.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a story for you. So the last prophetic word I had ever gotten from a prophet is, I cannot think, is his name Steve Schultz? He does you know who I'm talking. Oh, he's
Elijah List, isn't he?
Elijah List. That's what I was thinking. Yeah. He was at our church and he pointed at my husband and he was giving us a prophetic word. I cannot remember all of it. I have it written down somewhere, but halfway in it, he kind of just stops and he's like pausing. Right. And then he's like, he keeps going, but you can tell he's thinking. And then finally at the end, he was like, now I don't ever do this, but your family is going to grow by one and you're going to have a baby. And what's crazy, and this is the thing, like you can't data scrub this. So this is one of those moments, like you said, Paul, I cannot explain. Tyler and I had been talking about having our third child, Ella. And we had been going back and forth. Like, is it time? Is it not? Is it time? Is it not? Just between us. And so literally 3 days later at church, we get this prophetic word. And so it was, did we try? Yes. Did I get pregnant the very next month? Yes, I did. And he told me, he said, his wife came up to me afterwards and she goes, I just want you to know, he has never prophesied a baby ever in his life. Like that is his big number one rule. You never prophesy a baby. And he had come up to me with his wife. He's like, I'm sorry, I couldn't get away from it. And so that's one of those moments that I'm like, I still, as an agnostic atheist, I can't explain that moment. It's still weird as hell to me. And
it to me, it just tells that we are cosmically electrically connected as human beings and can hear that. So what's been the best show you guys have done, or what's the most incredible crime? And by the way, Lola, I love the interaction with you guys. I love how you are my emotions when I'm listening to the horrible stories. You're the one that's like, oh shit, that's the worst. I love that. But so what's the best or most?
Lola's
what
Paul's
stands out?
Voice.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh God, Laci, what do you think?
I'd have to like go through the whole list. It's hard to like really think of,
because I feel like it's like the last thing we recorded. That's the one that did it. Yeah. But like I think that every time.
Let me look at the list really fast. Hold on, I'm gonna switch screens so I might get bright.
Anything that jumps out in your head is fine too. It doesn't
honestly.
Have to be...
Okay, Pazuzu was pretty bad for me.
Oh yeah, that one was bad.
It was my favorite and my worst all at once. Pazuzu was
what made it your favorite and the worst?
Because Pazuzu is someone that I would have followed in my naive years. I would have fallen for that shit, and I would have been,
he was like the iconic bad boy, like emo kid type.
I love a bad boy. I'm morally great now. But he was horrible. And that. The crimes because there were crimes committed, even
Multiple.
though only like 2 were verified. I'm sure that there were others that that person committed. It was just deeply disturbing. All the hygiene issues in it, and
that was gross.
Yeah, that one, or Jeffrey Lundgren, and which is the Kirtland cult.
Yeah, that one
Laci,
was also.
yeah. That one had bathroom kinks in it.
That one scarred me. I don't think
I do kink shame with bathroom kinks. I'm sorry. I will kink shame there.
No. Oh, this is hard for me because one of my favorite episodes would be the Lucas Leonard case.
I was going to say it's Lucas Leonard for you. I just know it.
And the reason that one's one of my favorites is because I actually got to talk with his sister, and I'm friends with her on Facebook, and I have talked with her multiple times, and I got to hear like one off, like he was killed within the cult that he grew up in. It was a church, and it was a really, really good case. But also one of my most recent ones that I covered was the Andrea Bowman case.
Oof.
When I tell you that one, I don't know if you've watched the Netflix documentary on it.
If you just follow her mom for like even a week, you'll see her posts, even if you're not like actively looking for her posts. You will see her mother. She is
her biological
dragon.
Mom.
She is
who I want to be when I grow up.
She is the force to be reckoned with.
Yes. So to give you just like it's a 2-parter because it was such a long case, and there's so many crimes that happen within it that unfold. Like it is one of those like holy shit moments. Like every 20 minutes, something's happening that you're like, I did not see that coming.
And it's like semi unsolved.
So you guys are
it's solved. It's solved.
But like they don't have her though.
Yeah, they have her. They just don't have like the cremation. Her body is.
That's right.
Split.
Okay, yeah. That's right.
So a little synopsis of that one is she was born. Kathy gave birth to her, gave her up for adoption because she was pressured by her mom. Okay. She goes out.
She was very young too.
Very, very young. Yeah. She goes out and then like gets contacted in her late 20s, early 30s, probably even later than that, because they're trying to get her DNA because they found a body and they think it's her biological daughter who'd went missing decades prior to this. So she then goes on a rampage trying to figure out what happened to her child because her biggest regret was giving her up. And as she goes on this rampage, it unveils crime after crime after crime. And it like I'm not even going to give you any more than that because it's just so good. Either watch the documentary on Netflix or go check it out. Andrea Bowman. It's episode. I don't know what episode it is, but it's a 2-parter. It's pretty recent on our page. That one was insane. Yeah.
You guys are riding the wave of a phenomenon here. I mean, we have so much true crime stuff out there, and the Menendez brothers maybe let go soon. The Cal Poly killing was solved by a podcaster after going cold case, and the guy up in Modesto, I can't remember his name now. Laci Peters' husband, he may get out too. I mean,
what? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, that his sisters are making quite a case for his innocence, and there are people starting to get on that bandwagon. So,
oh god, I got to go look up that now.
Why are we so fascinated with true crime stuff?
Because it's the train wreck where you can't look away from.
Okay, but
it's that phenomenon in my head.
Yes, but also I think that it's validating. So you see a lot of true crime consumers are women, and a lot of it is validating for the things that we have experienced, because not all crime is murder. Not all crime, is something that's like completely life ending. But almost every woman that you meet has been sexually assaulted, molested, raped, something like that, made to feel uncomfortable in her own skin. And so it's just, it's relatable. It's validating. It can be healing too, to listen to true crime, especially when it's a resolved case, when like justice was served, whatever justice looked like in that scenario. It can just be healing for the person on the outside to not be directly in that situation, but to see another victim receiving justice and honor and respect that they deserve. So
Mhm. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think like exactly what Lola said, but there's also, I think, that phenomenon of like the train wreck that you can't look away from, or the car wreck that you can't look away from. We are all, as a human race, I feel like, fascinated with things we don't understand. And the human mind is one thing we are still constantly trying to learn about. And when it becomes something that's so vile, we can't wrap our minds around it. So we want to learn about it. We want to know the red flags. We want to know
how do we prevent this?
How do we prevent this? Yeah. And one thing we try to do is we try to be on our podcast as best as we can. I'm sure we're not perfect, but we try to be active true crime consumers. So we try to, on episodes that need it, we try to encourage our listeners to, call the prosecuting office if it needs to happen, or to donate to a GoFundMe for searches. We've a local to me, there's a missing girl. She's been missing for a couple of years. I've shouted that out on our podcast a few times, and tried to help give them some coverage for that case. We try to be as active as we can within the true crime space and not use it as just entertainment, because if we just use it as entertainment, then we are, I feel like, in my opinion, being doing a disservice to the victims themselves, and profiting off of their story and their crimes that happened against them, instead of actually using it as a platform to learn, to educate, to promote, to try to get something done. The best example I can give of an active true crime content creator is Kendall Ray. If you're ever on YouTube, she is like the GOAT of true crime. She is the most sweetest woman out there. She does a lot of like donating her profits to certain cases to help them get funding. She does a lot of like unsolved and missing persons cases. She even has she did recently, they created a nonprofit like grant thing, and they've been able to like put grants to cases, and so she's like actively in there. And that's something Lola and I desperately dream about doing one day. So that's one of our biggest goals with making this a full-time podcast, is not only so that we can pour into more episodes for our listeners, but also be able to make the money to pour
support
into
the families and the victims. And
I would love to donate money to the local mom who's searching for her child right now and has been for 2 years, and things like that. And Lola's local area. So yeah.
So Ashley, I wonder if they've watched As Seen on TV?
Based on a true story.
Based on a true story.
It's a fictionalized series about true.
Yes,
about a
Kaylee
true. Yes. Kaylee Cuoco. Yeah.
I love it. And I just love Kaylee. Like, I will watch anything with her in it. She's like, she's my heartthrob.
We love that too. We totally binge on that. I'm just like I'm feeling like, oh, these are the real life, versions of that character right here before us. So
that's funny. Lola has not seen it. I have to educate Lola on,
you gotta
on
see
modern
it, Lola.
TV.
You gotta see it.
I'm aware of what it is, but I haven't. I haven't seen it.
And by the way, if you love Kaylee, the stewardess. Was it the steward, the flight attendant?
The flight attendant. Yeah. Such a good show.
That's one of the best ever. Yeah. In the mental health space.
I told you I will watch anything with Kaylee in it.
Well, tell people where they can find you guys.
Lola, you want to share?
You can find us on TikTok and Instagram, just the Deadly Faith Podcast. You can listen to us.
Deadly Faith Podcast, right? Deadly Faith Podcast.
Yes, just Deadly Faith Podcast. That's right. Yeah. Not the. You can also listen to us literally on any platform. Anywhere you get your podcasts, we're there. And YouTube too, if you want to listen there.
Yeah. Our YouTube channel, we're going to have videos actually coming out right now. It's just kind of like a static background when you listen on YouTube. But shortly, within the next handful of episodes that come out, it will actually be not live, but an actual video. You'll see us conversing back and forth on YouTube. So we're growing there. We put out episodes every other week right now because we are trying. Lola and I are very, very busy people. We work multiple jobs and wear very many hats. So we've had to scale back so that we can scale the podcast, if that makes sense. We need to have the time to work behind the scenes. And so we do every other week. And we're available wherever you get your podcast. Also, you can email us at deadlyfaithpodcast@gmail.com if you want to.
And you can find us on Patreon too, where we have a different podcast, the Potty Podcast.
Yeah, we have a Patreon $5 a month where we do the potty podcast where we shoot the shit and we just talk about
anything
stuff.
we want, and then you get access to my blog posts and early announcements and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we'll go live once a month if you're of the
we're on it. Thank you for reminding us to talk about the potty podcast.
Yeah, we literally just talk about. Sometimes we'll do like, "Am I the asshole?" or we'll just like
hauntings.
We talked about Luigi
therapy.
Talk about therapy. Yeah, we talk about random stuff on there. But then we'll go live once a month if you're on the the coffin tier, where we'll go live once a month, and you can have access to those lives as well. And we also have a merch shop. If you go find us on literally any podcast platform, in every single show notes of every episode is links to our merch, to our Patreon, to all of our social medias, our email. It's always in every episode, so you can find us there. And our it even has links to our personal social media accounts, so you can follow us personally too if you want.
Beautiful.
All right. Well, as we say at the beginning of our show in our little British woman open, I don't know if people, I am both inspired and maybe a little bit perspiring thinking of all these cases that, So anyway, you helped us cover, the range of ires that we talk about here on our show.
Yes. Thank you for having us so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was a really good conversation.
And normally, Ashley, we do what's on my mind at the end, but I actually have a group project to get to in just a few minutes. So should we just say sayonara right now?
What is on your mind is signing off so that you can go get on your student show at 7:15. That's right. That's what's on my, what's on my mind is I'm hungry and
time for dinner.
Time for dinner.
So go check out the Deadly Faith podcast. Lola, it was wonderful to meet you. And Laci, love you as always. Love to interact with you like this, and love seeing you fulfill who you are and being such a badass.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
All right. Love everybody. We'll see you guys soon.
See you soon.
Bye.